Yeah, so I'm helping those two guys out, like Sal and Jeremy, and then I've just started taking up few consulting gigs. So my current goal for next 5 to 7 years. So I'm not, I don't want to get into something for 6, 8, 10 months anymore. I've done that over last 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like next 5 to 7 years, and the way I see it, it's like the over the next 5, 7 years, 25 to 30% of world population will be using blockchain and smart contracts, but they won't know it. Like the easiest way to explain it is today, you, me, and even our parents use JavaScript. They have no idea what JavaScript is, but everyone uses it. Same way people will be using blockchain and smart contracts.
Yeah.
And to get there, we need the core fundamental tech building blocks. Things like Apple, things like Amazon, things like PayPal of Web3, of the crypto space. And my goal is to be a part of building those. It's like in 7 years, if I look back at the 7 years I spent from today, I should be able to tell myself that if I was not alive in the world wouldn't have been here. So I would be a core contributor in building that world up. So that's kind of the big, hairy, audacious goal for me over the next 7 years.
I love it. We'll unpack that. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Naked Passion Podcast. We've got a pioneer on this evening. You've just heard how passionate this man is, Ashwin Nandapurkar. I hope I got that close enough. I apologize, Ashwin, if I missed it.
It was great. It was great.
Just quickly, Ashwin, I'd like to have a quick shout out tonight for our sponsors, Curtain Trend, living on the Gold Coast. Give them a call. They're found in Oxenford, all your window furnishings. But Ashwin, thank you very much and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat today.
Mate, I'm very excited for the next couple of hours because you've had a brilliant past and it seems like your future is going to be even brighter. So I've got a million places I'd love to begin. No better place than the beginning, I guess, Ashwin. So do you want to just actually, before we take it back to where it all began for yourself, maybe just give our audience, I guess, the elevator pitch or a little bit of background on what it is you do?
Cool. So I am a builder, executor, operator of businesses. I've been doing this for the last 10 years. I've built a lot of different businesses, different industries. The biggest one was my last role where I scaled the company from $5,000 monthly recurring revenue to over $1 million monthly recurring revenue in a period of like 8 to 10 months. Wow. I was part of building that up. I was like the 6th employee of the company, part of founding team. And then when I left, the company was 150 people. So all of that ups and downs that happens during that phase, I've been through that. That is like the biggest one or the most successful one for now. And after I left that last August, I've been spending all of my time in the blockchain smart contract space because I think that's the future. I think we started with that. So yeah, I'm consulting projects here. I'm helping them build the business side of stuff and probably will start something of my own or join a like early stage team, like 4 or 5 people team over the next 3 to 6 months.
That's exciting. While we're here, Ashwin, because I want to hear a lot about this story, mate. Scaling from 8,000 MRR to over 1 million. That's incredible. That's once in a lifetime type hyper growth. We're not even talking over 20 to 30 years. You're talking, you say 8 to 10 months.
Yep.
That's let's start there, I think, and then we'll take it back because that sounds incredible. What can you share about that experience, mate? That must have been exhilarating.
It was. So honestly, I think it was more about being prepared for it. So it's like it was a combination of luck and seeing into the future. So like we were a virtual events company, but we were that before the pandemic. A lot of people came into virtual events after the pandemic hit. We were there like since July of 2019. We are trying to figure out what works for our customers, who are our customers, building those growth loops and things like that. Yeah. So what happened was from August of 2019 to Feb of 2020, we had done a lot of stuff in the background, built a kick-ass product which people who used loved. It wasn't too many people, as I said, it was like 5,000 monthly recurring revenue, very minuscule number of people. But whoever was using our product, they loved it. So we had a kind of a product market fit already done. before the pandemic hit. So as the pandemic hit, we just needed to make sure we set the right processes to scale the sales up, scale the ops up, because product was there.
Brilliant.
Then during that time, as sales started coming in, it's again, it was more about the grind. It's like any startup is about the grind. So it was like during those times, I live in India. So like US time zones and Australia time zones very early or late for me.
Yeah.
I literally used to wake up at 6:30, or rather wake up at 6. My first call used to be 6:30, and back to back without breaks, without more than 15 minutes breaks. I used to be just on sales calls 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 in the evening. That was 15 hours for probably 2.5, 3 months, because I was the only sales guy. I had to do it. So that was first step, wherein just getting from, let's say, 5K to 100K. That was like doing it solo, and then eventually getting one more person, and both of us doing the same thing, like 6:30 to 9:30 or 6:30 to 12. That was our day. Then as things started getting out of hand, then came the processes, then came the systems, because we realized how much ever we do, even if we work 24 hours, we're not going to be able to pull it off. Then we had to figure out how to hire people, how to hire the right people. So that took a couple of iterations. We hired a couple of people, had to fire them. That always happens. We learned from that. Like that, we lost a lot of time because of that. Same, came back onto us to get the job done. Then building those systems and processes in to make sure when you hire a person, training them, in my opinion, training a salesperson is the most important thing to make sure they are successful. So getting that sales training process figured out, scaling the systems and processes. What I mean by that is like writing it down, making sure everyone follows it, making sure it is like I can do it and 15 other people on the team can do it and get similar results. That was a big thing. Once we got there, it was like about 4-5 months into the scale. And then we were like at 400, 500K a month. From there, it was more about optimization after that, because the market kind of had started plateauing out. So we the hyper growth or hockey stick part was more or less done, and we had to make sure we keep growing. Then came the optimization. So diving deep into the sales funnel, into the customer journey on the website, on the product, in the sales team, how everything happened. Where do you optimize small amounts, increasing like one conversion by 2%, 3%, 1.5%? How do you do that? How do you leverage those small things? But on the bottom line, on the top line, it gives a big impact. And the next 2-3 months was about that, where we scaled those things up, fixed the funnel more or less to bring in more people. And then towards the last part, where I let go of sales and moved into strategy, then we were focusing on growing our growth experiments, which was more or less writing down some thesis every week and testing out 2 to 3 different theses to make sure we can generate more revenue channels for the business. So that's that was kind of the process that we went through for those 9-10 months.
That the time frame is, the whole story is impressive, but the time frame is legendary.
Thank you. That's again, it's honestly, I don't think it was necessarily my skill. I wouldn't say it wasn't my skill. I wouldn't say it had too much to do with me, because the market was doing that. The market was moving at that pace. The only skill or only credit I can take is being flexible enough to adjust and make sure the business grows with the market. Because if we didn't do it, there were definitely competitors out there who would have taken that money from customers, because customers were there to pay. So that, again, luck always plays a part in business, but all we did was we were ready and flexible enough, and we pivoted to make sure we can grow it with the market.
What was the most enjoyable part of that journey?
Honestly, ownership.
Yeah.
For me, because see, I'm the kind of person who I don't necessarily need to be in control, but I prefer to have ownership on my deliverables, and I like to have freedom. I don't ask people to give me freedom day one. I'll prove myself to you as a business owner if I'm doing a job at your company. But once I've proven myself, once I've started giving you results, I need you to give me that ownership. And in this company, again, as it happened that we didn't have enough people. The CEO didn't have time to micromanage, which was the best thing for me because I got the whole ownership of the sales team, building it up, recruiting, firing, all of that was mine. And by virtue of that, I could experiment. I could let my thought process go wild, do things which might not have been possible. And literally, it was like the way I see it, I was learning for first 7.5, 8 years of my career. And everything that I'd learned during that time, I was just implementing it, execute on whatever I'd learned over the earlier parts of my career. And that was the most exciting part of building it up.
Do you think, I think you just sort of touched on it. How large a role do you think speed in the execution played a factor?
I think 85 to 90% of the results were because of the speed. I'm a firm believer in speed because, again, I come from a business or like a startup background where speed is everything. Because it's like the biggest challenge with most startups is a lot happens here. And like here, as in for the listeners, a lot happens in the mind, but very little happens on the ground. I don't like that at all. I prefer like you ideate for a week, go test it out for 2 months after that. And with that 2-month execution, you like every week you do something different to test out one part of your thesis. So that's the speed I would say I like to work at. And what we achieved, 85 to 90% of that, I would say, attributed to the speed at which we were able to move.
That's brilliant. I've got so many questions just in that journey alone, Ashwin. Talk to me about, I'm really intrigued about the sales process specifically. And I guess what it takes to build a sales team. I guess speaking to a sales process, how did that sort of work out for yourself?
So I think it, for me, I'm intuitively human. So what I mean by that is, it's like a lot of times when we talk to salespeople, they don't seem human. They seem very robotic. They have a script and they follow it. You ask them something out of the script, they're like, oh no, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I'm a conversational person. And I'm very intuitive about how the other person is feeling. Like I can read their emotions from their facial expressions, from their hand movement, things like that. So that has been like key for my success, but that cannot be replicated for everyone. So, but I realized that early, and what we did was we figured out, so the process, the way we developed it was figured out a set of questions to understand not just customers' goals, but where they're coming from, what are their emotional needs. So figuring the customer out as a human being and as a business, those were two parts of the initial like 15 minutes, let's say it's a 1 hour call. The initial 15 minutes was focused on the customer to get to know them and connecting with them on a human level rather than a business level. That is first part of building the sales process out. Secondly, it was making sure that the person who is doing the sales, they understand the product in and out completely. Because the product might have 20 features. The customer doesn't need all 20, and you don't need to sell them all 20. You have to make sure you give them only the things which they need, because there is going to be a lot of information overload if you like dump all 20 on them. So it was like understanding the product, understanding the use cases of different features of the product, making sure you fit it into them. That was the second part. So product training was a very key part of the sales process. And finally, the biggest piece, which I think most sales teams don't do out there, is shadowing and reverse shadowing. So I had been like, by the time we hired our first people, I had done it for like 4 or 5 months. I knew everything. Like you wake me up and ask me to do a sales call, middle of the night, I could do it. I was at that stage. So making sure that they attend 4 or 5 of my calls, how I do it. Then after every call, I would question them. What did they learn? Why do they think I did something like this? Why was it different from the last one? So like making them think about the process. That was the shadowing part. Reverse shadowing was same thing. They would lead the sales call with the client. I would be sitting there. I would be observing them to make sure they're doing it the right way. This is like the whole, more or less whole process that we were doing. I know it was a bit cumbersome. It took probably a month to train someone up, but it worked. like the people who I trained using this process, they're still the best salespeople in the company. And I left sales in October 2020, and like I'm left the company in like August of 2021, and still they are the best salespeople in the team.
I just want to point something out quickly too. You sort of glossed over it, saying that in 4 or 5 months you sort of knew everything, and I know that to some people that's a short time frame, but it's worth pointing out that that was 4 or 5 months of essentially fitting in 2 days' work in one. What most people's 7 to 8 hours, you're doing 2 of those in 1 day. So you're talking almost a year's worth in such a compressed time, doing the same thing day in, day out. So the repetition and just putting in the reps, that's where your skill set, and probably why your skill set it just exploded at such a huge pace. Okay, so with that scaling process, Ashwin, is there anything that sort of sticks out that was a bit of a surprise? We maybe something unexpected that worked, maybe benefited, maybe you wanted to implement something that perhaps didn't go to plan. But is there anything that sort of stands out in that process that came to as a bit of a surprise?
So I think the biggest surprise that came to me, I think we already touched upon it. It was the training part, because as I said, I'm a very intuitive salesman, and I hadn't trained salespeople before. I'd managed teams and stuff, but I didn't have to necessarily train a sales team. And like when you are intuitively good about something as a human, you assume everyone is good at that.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought, that okay, if someone is a salesperson, they would be by default good at it. They are salespeople. I understand you. So everyone would understand their customer. But once I started working with people, I realized, oh no, this is not something which everyone is good at. I am not the norm. I am an exception to the norm.
Mm-hmm.
So then taking that approach and pivoting it to making sure like the next people I hire, I'm trained them properly, and making sure that the people who are already there, how do we reskill them or make sure they fit into the mold of the sales process? That was kind of a surprise that came to me, and that was a big learning as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how important do you think I guess the systems and processes when it comes to scaling a business?
See, without a system or a process, you won't be able to scale. It's that important. It's like it's one of the most crucial parts, because when the company is like 10 or 20 people or even 30 people big, you and 2 or 3 other people are going to work on something, and you can like have a look at what they're doing. You can make sure, basically you can micromanage them if needed. But when you're scaling it up, when your own team is 10 people big and the company is 50 people big, you can't keep a watch on everyone as a head of a department or a manager, simply because you don't have the time. You have your own deliverables and you have to get things done by the team. And without a consistent process, the customer is not going to get the exact same service. And if you're a business that is scaling, that wants to scale, you have to make sure customers get the best possible service, and they get it every time. It's not like if Ashwin is doing it, you'll get it. And if Nathan is doing it, you won't get it. It doesn't work that way if you have to scale a company. So, and the simplest way of doing it is you write it down, you make sure you record a bunch of videos. Like that is the way I used to train my team. I wrote probably 2,000 word document. And after that, I recorded a 20-minute video explaining my thought process, why I wrote it, because sometimes just reading might not make sense. So you put in that video on top of the written process so that people get the gist. And then you do a session with the team to make sure they've understood what has to be done. So that's I think without the processes and systems, it's more or less impossible to scale a business.
I love the idea you just put forward of having that video to explain the why behind it, and almost sort of speaking to the process and the benefits of it. It sounds like that was really well received as well.
Yep. It's basically, again, so I come at stuff. I'm a very first principles thinker. So I come at every problem from a why perspective. I try to go to the fundamentals of it. And while trying to figure out the fundamentals of why people don't follow processes, they don't see sense in the process. It's like if something doesn't make sense to you as a human being, you're not going to do it. So I figured that part out, and that's where the why came in, that, okay, we're doing this process, but this plays this role in the big picture business. And this is why you need to do it. Because if you don't do it, then this is how it impacts the business badly. And indirectly, it's going to impact you badly, because if the business doesn't live, you don't have a job tomorrow. So it's like figuring that human part of the process out. That helped me figure out, like, build this why into the process itself.
I love that. I love the tying it back to the bigger picture as well. I think it's definitely so much value there that I think more businesses and companies could definitely be doing anyway.
Yep, think so too.
So Ashwin, let's take it back a little bit further. I'd like to hear a bit about your own journey, where it all sort of kicked off for yourself, and I guess where you learnt your skills.
Oh, so you want to look at the good old grind days of my life?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm an engineer by education as such. I've never worked in engineering. I've never liked it. I'm a mechanical engineer, but that's what my degree says. So I'm an engineer that way.
So you've never worked as an engineer, but that's your degree. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
So I realized, like, during my first year of undergrad itself, I realized this is not my cup of tea. And I started exploring building businesses. So that's where my journey is 10 years long, because I started my first business at like 17 and a half, roughly 18 years. So I was barely an adult by the time I started working or started building stuff. It was like a Tinder before Tinder existed in the country. This is back in 2012 when I built this out. It went pretty well for a few months. And then I was like a 17-year kid trying to manage like 25-year-old engineers, and they thought I'm just a small kid, and they just left. So that didn't work out that way. Then I did another startup after that, which was into education, wanted to help people choose the right career. So it is focused on psychometrics. So what are your inbuilt or inborn skills? What are your interests? And what are your actual build skills, like inborn and developed skills? So it was these three parts: inborn skills, developed skills, and interest. Took those three together and built a process to help people decide their career choices. That went very well. Unfortunately, that was a very capital intensive business. We were burning a lot of money. Like first few iterations and the pilot and stuff, we put our own money as students, but you don't have too much money as a student. After that, we had to raise funding. We, as the team, like the founding team, like three of us, we couldn't agree on the dilution. And eventually we had to let it go because we didn't have the money to build it up.
Makes sense.
And that's where that's where the learning came, that if a business doesn't make money from day one, if it is not sustainable, it doesn't matter. How much ever big problem you solve, eventually it will, like, unless you are a market mover or you're a first in the market, unless that is the case, you're probably going to shut down without VC funding. So that was a big learning there. After that, it was a more of a gig startup where we were putting advertisements on daily use student goods like notebooks, writing stationery pads, pens, to reduce prices, where we were making money, the advertiser was making money, and students were getting stuff for cheaper and good quality. That worked out for a while. And then my engineering ended. So I had a huge student loan to pay. And then my dad gave me a choice. Dude, see, either make this much money from your business so that you can pay your student loan. I'm not going to pay it. Or rather, he didn't say I'm not going to pay it. He was like, we can't afford to pay it, because my brother was also getting educated. So it was like, dude, see, do you want to do this business and take your brother out of school? I'm like, obviously not. So then it was a choice between that and continuing the business. And obviously, it was like a no-brainer to take up a job. I worked in the Amazon of India back then. It is called Flipkart. It was the biggest retailer, like e-retailer of the country. I was managing their jewelry category for about a year. It was a majorly BD role, sales BD role, where I was responsible for the P&L of the category, bringing in new sellers, managing the existing sellers, growing the revenues of the category, all of that. And I left that in about a year's time, majorly because I couldn't go along with the politics of the system. Like
Yeah.
any 10,000 people company, you have to make sure your boss is happy, boss's boss is happy, the friend of the boss is happy, the friend of the boss's boss is happy, all of that. And I unfortunately couldn't do it. So I
Let's
moved on.
unpack that, mate, because I think I'm similar to yourself. I had uh, a gentleman who became a friend. I don't speak with him anymore, but I guess he pointed out that he was my first mentor at the time, and he was the CEO of the company. And we got along well, had, great, really transparent sort of conversations. And he said to me once, you've got to learn to play politics. And my argument was, I disagree. I said, surely my results should speak for themselves, and politics shouldn't come into it. This isn't how I was raised. It's uncomfortable for me. I don't like it. I just want to be me. And as long as my results are there, that should be the end of it. And he carefully pointed out and asked the question of if I believed that he found joy in conversing with other people at work. And I sort of looked at him a little bit surprised, and he informed me he didn't. He said, but as in his role, that's his job. And he said, he goes, you really need to learn how to do politics better. I'm happy to say that today I still can't do it very well. So that's still a learning curve of myself, but it sounds like we're on the same page with that one, Ashwin.
I agree, dude. See, my thought process is you would do the politics. It's like, so if it makes sense to achieve a bigger goal in life, then you by default will learn a skill. It's like the survival instinct that I need to get to this end goal. And if I have to learn politics to do it, you would do it. But the thing is, for him, probably he's in that role where he has to do it. Yeah. For us, we have more options. Like, for example, I didn't like it, so I just moved on. Like the director, like maybe 2 levels up from me, there was a director who didn't like my approach, and she's like, you will never get a job in this country. I'm like, dude, all the best. I'll find jobs in other countries.
Yeah.
It's that, right? Because when you, as you said, right, when you have that skill set, when you can deliver results, there is a ton of people. There are 7.2 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
There is always someone who's going to value that skill. It's just going through that grind to find and reach that person. And then once you reach there, you make the most out of it.
Makes sense.
So, again, I can do politics. I know I can. I've done it. But it's like, it's in extreme dire situations. Like my last company, eventually, once we grew to 150 people, I had to do it because I had built it and it was kind of my baby. So I had to make sure I kept everyone happy. But eventually it just tires you out. And I left the company because I didn't align with that anymore. So it's just that.
Yeah. And look, there's definitely some value there, right? I think it just comes down to a bit of empathy. But the troublesome area, and I think why it's got such a negative stigma with me, is because I've seen people that are just not themselves. And in my head, if playing politics means not being yourself and not, it's a buzzword, authentic, isn't it? But if it means not being yourself, then it's just not for me. And that doesn't mean that I expect that I can parade myself around and be an arsehole. That's not the case at all. You genuinely be a nice person and whatever else. But if it means having to change me, then I'm not for that. So look, I'm sure I've got that all sorts of wrong, but that's just a little part of it that I've sort of seen other people completely change who they are, and it's just not a good look.
Honestly, I'll just.
So talk us through. So you're at. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, go on.
No, you're right, mate. I cut you off.
So I was saying, I agree with you 100% there. The way I see it is, it's like, there has to be a reason. So for me, like I'm a very goals oriented person. There has to be a reason to do something. If let's say, for example, like my personal life, I had to change the way I am a little bit to make sure I get married to the woman I loved, because her parents come from the army background. I'm like a startup dude who's not like, doesn't have like a stable income every time. So you have to sometimes make those changes happen in life. but it has to have the worthy reason. Like the trade-off has to be worth it. It's like in my case, the trade-off was spending the whole of my life with the person I loved and like changing my personality for a few hours or a few days. That trade-off seemed worth it. So it's that in my head.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you've left this job. Where does that take you next?
So it takes me to so what I thought was, then my thought process was, okay, maybe I can still work in a big company which is like well funded and stuff, but maybe the size of the company is the issue. So I thought I'll move into a smaller company. So like from a 10,000 people company, I moved into like a 200, 300 people company who was like very small. It was barely Series A company. They had good funding. They had like great founders. The company is still doing amazing. And like I joined them. I was part of building stuff again. It was like they were setting up a new city. It was a city-based operations. So they were setting up a new city. I was leading a few categories wherein basically the process was that you go out, you talk to vendors, find vendors first, talk to them, qualify them, bring them on board the platform, and then customers come to the platform, take the services of the vendors, and you kind of like make sure they deliver their services properly. So that was kind of the process that I was doing. I launched like a few categories, like 4 categories for them. And eventually I realized that the problem that existed in the first company still exists in the second company. Just the scale of it is smaller. So if the company becomes smaller, it's just the scale problem. It's like if probably you have to do 10 hours of politics there, here you have to do like 2 hours or 3 hours. But it's still the same process, same thing. Make your boss happy, boss's boss happy, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, nah, dude, I know I work well in startups. So let's go there. Luckily, I had some money saved to pay off my loans for like a year and a half. So I moved into a marketing tech company, very small. It was like 4 people team. I was the 4th guy on the team. So a ton of ownership. I was building stuff with them, researching. That is one of my key pivotal roles, I would say, where I learned a lot about how businesses are built, or rather how businesses can fail, even though they have like great team, great founders, and great understanding of the market. So the team was led by a developer, and we were building out a marketing tech platform for mom and pop retailers who were probably basically, again, everything, all omni-channel strategy would be done through our platform. Anything online, anything social media, SEO, website, all of that would be done directly from our platform.
Yeah.
I worked on that for about a year, and it kind of worked a little bit. We had a few clients, but we couldn't scale it completely. And eventually I ran out of money.
Yeah.
So had to go back to a job. But I didn't want to stay in the same industry. I just wanted to explore some other stuff. So I moved into something called as neuro-linguistic programming, which is like a
Interesting. Cool.
It's a sub branch or like complementary branch of psychology, which focuses on connection between conscious and unconscious mind. How closely do those two work together? How it affects daily life, things like that. I've been always excited about psychology, so this was kind of my way of getting into it.
Yeah.
So I started working with a company and managing their marketing sales. I had that passed. So it was that. And it was more of a barter deal wherein they were paying me a minimal amount to make sure I could pay my loans and survive. But it was more like, it wasn't the market rate. They were paying me much lesser. And instead of paying, they were teaching me. It was a training company. So I was taking their courses for free, which was, on paper, it was a great deal because the courses costed a lot. So
that's really smart. That's like, that got me excited because it goes against the grain. You'd speak to a lot of people. That is a huge assumption, and I think a lot of people may challenge you on that and point to your market worth and valuing your time. And look, there's definitely some validity to that argument in some cases. But if you can leverage, and it goes back to bartering, like this world literally thrived on bartering not too long ago. So you were happy with that arrangement. It sounds like they were happy with that arrangement.
Yep.
What were some really keen takeaways that I guess that you had from their NLP courses?
So I think my key takeaways was understanding of people. So it's like if you frame a question or if you frame a certain sentence in a certain way, what happens inside the mind. So it's like it kind of gave me an understanding of like putting two and two together and making five out of it. Not everyone can do that, but it's like the fist is stronger than the fingers. It is kind of that, because intuitively I was always good at understanding people, but this gave me a framework, a skill set to actually put that in action. Like, for example, when my wife is sad or my brother is not happy, I knew always, like I could feel they were not happy, but I didn't know how to ask them the right questions to get to the depth of it and probably help them out. And I also didn't know like when to push and when to stop. Like sometimes you have to stop when someone is unhappy or they're sad.
Yeah.
So those things, those might not be like big skills in terms of the world sees it, but for me, they have been very critical in my success, because when my CEO, like when the CEO of my company is not in the right mindset, I can't ask him to double my salary because that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But when I've just delivered a $60,000 client and there are two other companies out there asking me to join them and offering me double the money, that is the moment I can ask him to do that, because I've worked for far lesser in the last year and a half. So that intuitive understanding, I think a big part of that came, like basically building it into a structure came from this NLP courses.
Do you think, because I'm very, very interested in neuro-linguistic programming. I'm pretty keen to do a course myself. I haven't yet done a little bit of light reading, just sort of almost scratched the surface because there's so much to unpack. But do you think there is much value or much crossover even between NLP and I guess sales?
See, I think it depends, but I do think there is. It's just that a lot of the things that they teach in an NLP course, a lot of it is very theoretical and you have to practice it a lot.
Yeah.
It's probably like 6, 8, 10 months of continuous practice to bring it into your day-to-day life. Luckily for me, my job included that. That's why it came into me, because I had to go to all the courses that were happening across the country. I was traveling, I was doing that. So I attended a bunch of courses, and that process where a person who's not in the field, they have to do multiple courses over the like same course multiple times over a period of 6, 8, 10 months. That happened to me during my job. And that came into me like basically as a muscle that was built in my mind. So it's like that reps we spoke about for sales, that reps have to come in for here. And once those reps come in, then it is extremely beneficial. Like building that rapport. Like I don't have to, like probably when someone is going on let's say you're going on a big client sales call, a person typically would spend 45 minutes to 1 hour to go in depth of the business, the person you're talking to and things like that. I typically need like 10 or 12 minutes, 15 max, because in my browsing of the website, browsing of their socials, I can pick up 3-4 points just like that and build conversations on top. So building that rapport, it's very easy for me. And that comes, a big part of it comes from the NLP training I had taken. So it kind of big picture, it pays off, but it's not an immediate result kind of a thing.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. So you're at the training course. It's going pretty well for you. What happens next?
So what happens next is it was a friend's company. And that was another learning for me, that it's not a good idea to work with friends, because if something doesn't go well on a personal level between you two, or either or, like personal level doesn't go well, business screws up. On a business level, it doesn't go well, the friendship screws up. So the friend's dad's company, technically, he wasn't one of the owners then. So it was like he and me, we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. And he was giving me some advice on my personal life, which I vehemently disagreed on, and he kept pushing at it. And it kind of, then it basically, that started the breaking process. And then like once it starts, like something or the other keeps triggering it. So the cracks kept getting wider and wider. And eventually I was like, guys, let's part ways. Let's try to be friends again. But again, his dad didn't like that. And then after that, I haven't spoken to them. even though I give them a lot of credit for where I am, they don't know that yet because they haven't spoken to me in like last 4 or 5 years or whatever.
That's a shame. That's a real shame.
After that, I wanted to explore another industry. So I had always been like very, what would you say, enchanted by teaching. I always wanted to teach. So what I did was, I'm pretty good at physics. I used to be and I still am. So I wanted to teach physics to young kids. So it was another barter transaction wherein there was a coaching institute in my hometown and they were setting up a new city business. So they're like, you have the business skills required. I'm like, yes, I can help you set it up. But with money, I need like this 20% or 15% of my time. I want to teach physics. They're like, if you can learn it and teach it well, students understand, you can do it. So it was like I was helping them build the business. They're paying me for that part, but I was learning teaching on the job because I wanted to do it and experience it. So did that went really well. My sales skills was very useful in there, built up the business properly. And then in about 8-10 months, I realized, okay, it takes way too much patience to teach young kids, like 12 to 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
And it is just way too much on my mental health. I was like, it's just too much stress because I basically I didn't have the patience to teach them.
Cool.
So I bowed out. I told them, guys, you can I have set it up in a way that probably you guys can take over. And then I moved out from there because I couldn't teach. And the whole point of this was, even though I was making very good money and stuff, the whole point of this gig was especially to get into teaching, which wasn't being met. So the goal wasn't being met. So I moved on from there.
Awesome. And so what's I want to keep going with this, but I want to come back and I guess explore the idea of mental health, because it's such an important, huge area that's probably I guess receiving the attention that it probably should have for some time, but I think it's finally getting its moment in the sun. Ashwin, why not? We're here now. Let's unpack that. So as I said, mental health, it's touched everyone probably in more ways than people realize. And I'm sure most people have known someone that it's impacted quite dramatically in whatever effect. But we had half a chat, I guess, before the show, Ashwin. So do you want to I guess spend a bit of time speaking about mental health and I guess the importance of it and maybe a bit about your experience?
Yeah, we can do that. I think let's start off when I realized the importance of it. There are multiple places where I realized, and there is one trigger point which actually led me to start taking action. So one of the trigger points which made me start, like basically where I started thinking about mental health was my wife. So my current wife, rather. Not the right word to use. My wife, like she's my wife. When she was my girlfriend, she's a psychologist. So and she was doing a PhD in psychology. So that was the first time when I actually came to know about mental health and mental wellness. And then I started exploring. What triggered me into getting into proper mental health care for myself was the same experience we started the podcast with, which was the Remo experience. When I was scaling a business up, it was 15, 16 hours a day. And I was very drained and it was taking a huge toll on my mental health. Like when I'm not in good mental space, I have these very bad, very painful headaches. And I used to have them like almost every other day. So that was the point where I started talking to more, like found a therapist and started talking to her. And eventually over the course of next few months, I got much better and like got the headache issue under control. And eventually I burnt out because of the same amount of work. And my therapist helped me out with that, with the burnout as well. And a few things again. So it's like, as human beings, we do so much stuff in our mind and we don't know about it. It's like couple of the reasons why I was having headaches at the age of 26 were some things which had happened like 12, 15 years in my past.
Wow.
So this is like, these are some of the things which I don't typically like talk about too much. Again, wherever relevant, I do talk. So it's like I was sexually abused as a kid. As like I was like probably 10, 11 years old, and an elder like cousin brother of mine said sexually abused me. And back then I did not know it was not right. And I
Yeah.
never spoke to anyone. But it did leave the scar on me. And it was affecting me a lot throughout like 15, 16 years of my life after that. I never knew. And
Cool.
once I started talking to my therapist, we uncovered that as one of the core reasons why I have my headaches.
Yeah.
That was one thing. Another one was
Ashwin, that's yeah, unreal. Thank you very much. I'm sure a lot of our viewers get a lot of value from that, mate. So thank you for being brave and bringing that forward. So
honestly, it's like if anyone is facing any mental health issues and needs a ear, because I know how beneficial it is to just say it out to someone. My DMs are always open. Anyone can send me a DM on LinkedIn and we can connect and just chat about it. I always have that because I myself have been through that. I know how tough it is. And I also know the other side of the coin, that once you start talking about it, it eventually becomes easier.
yeah,
So my DMs are always going to be open to whoever needs that help.
we'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes as well, Ashwin. It's very kind. So when can you share a little bit about your experience with the idea of burnout? Because it may look
before
different.
that, I would like to add one more thing,
please.
because this was one part of the bigger reason what was happening. Second reason or second mental health issue I faced was a few years after this, which was in my like when I was 15. So I went into a very deep depression. And I was at a place where I like living didn't make sense to me. So I tried to take my own life back then. It luckily it didn't work out, and that is one of the most pivotal points of my life, because it's like it just my thought process changed, and I'm like, dude, I haven't died even though I attempted. And that means I'm meant to do something bigger in life. I'm meant to help other people, impact the world. And then that changed. But this depression was another thing which kind of was taking its toll on me till 2 years ago. I think it still has some control over me. I'm still working through those issues. But that was another thing which I came across during this mental health explorations with my therapist. Those are like two of the pivotal things in the past which are just bottled up somewhere in my mind, and which kept affecting me for like 15 years after they happened.
Understandable. What are depression is such a ferocious beast, and we still don't really have a full grasp over the entire context. As far what are some tools that you sort of leverage to help you work through depression and I guess have it become a bit more manageable and to your point, get through to the other side?
So for me, back in the day, I just found, so one concept which I always tell people is it's better to run towards something rather than running away from something. Because when you're running away, you always look back and see what you're running away from. So it's always there in your mind. For me, luckily, I had a big, hairy, audacious goal back then, which helped me move on. Because it's like, as I said, I didn't die. I wanted to, I attempted to, but I didn't. So that just gave me the power to, okay, let's look forward. What can I do? I set up a huge goal, which seemed impossible at the time. And I just started working towards it and worked my ass off. Sorry. I worked very hard to.
We can say ass, mate. We can say shit, whatever you like. Go nuts.
So I worked my ass off and got to that goal. So that was one thing. And after that, having people to talk to about it. Because after that, in like 4 or 5, I never spoke about it. In Western countries, probably in Australia, it's not that taboo to talk about mental health. But in India, it's still a big taboo.
Yeah.
It's like, and this is like this is like 10 years ago. So I did not talk to anyone about it. And that's where my wife, as I said earlier, that was a pivotal point in my life, because she being a psychologist, she studying it, she doing her research in it, that kind of helped me open up to her. And once I opened up to her, I realized, okay, just talking about it helps you process it, like naming the feelings. These are like typical textbook stuff, that name the feeling, write about it, talk about it. But that genuinely helped me during those times.
That's unreal. I'm a bit. I feel very grateful that you shared that with us, Ashwin. So I want to thank you again. I guess if what sort of words of advice could you give? I guess people that may be struggling with depression at the moment.
Honestly, I think one thing which most of us struggle with is we think we have to be strong for ourselves. And what being strong for ourselves means, at least that is what is taught in schools and stuff, that being strong means figuring it out yourself, doing it by yourself. Don't ask for anyone's help. And my opinion and my experience is, being strong actually means asking for help. It could be a friend, it could be a therapist, it could be your spouse or your partner, but just asking for help, that is the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone who's struggling with these issues. Because if nothing else, they will give you strength to go with it. No, like, people who are close to you and who understand, they're not going to like vilify your problem. They're not going to say it's a taboo, or they're not going to probably like just put you down for because you are going through a problem.
Yeah. And just going back to the idea of burnout, Ashwin, I think especially in today's world, and look, I've probably struggled with it a little bit myself of late. I'm trying to fit everything in, working full time, not quite the 6:30 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. at one job like yourself, Ashwin. But then I've got the podcast and crypto and looking at other projects. So it's actually a current conversation with my wife, who I'm very grateful clearly cares for me deeply, or she wouldn't be trying to have these conversations. I say trying a little bit flippantly because look, I probably have dismissed a few of her attempts to open that line of conversation. So yeah, I'd like to I guess learn a little bit more from yourself as far as what your experience with burnout was, and perhaps some of the warning signs, and what you sort of found helped yourself.
So I think let's start with the warning signs, because most people don't even realize they have burnt out. Even though they might have read about it, it just doesn't click sometimes. So I think there are a few warning signs. One of the biggest ones, I think, is you are not yourself with your loved ones, because that is the place where you're typically the most you, where there are the least amount of filters or least amount of masks you wear. But when you like on small things, you flip out. Like, for example, when I was like going through burnout, like me and my wife, we had ordered ice cream, and she took a bite of the ice cream before me. It took like 2 seconds. Literally, it took like 2 or 2.5 seconds. And I flipped out. Why didn't you give it to me? I wanted it. And I shouted on her. So it's like, that's not me. But because there were so many emotions, like just bottled up, they were just coming out anywhere and everywhere. So like that is like the one of the biggest signs I've seen, which is like you not being yourself with your loved ones. Another one which I've seen is just getting tired too early. It's like you normally can do something, but let's say you can read for an hour, but you read for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and you get tired. Or you constantly feel mentally tired, physically tired. These are like some of the, like when you're in later stages of burnout, that's kind of the symptoms, I would say, or like identifiers for burnout. And what helped, I think the first thing, which is the most difficult for people in today's world, is taking a break, because it is also looked down upon, because it's like in the crypto world, if you're not always on, you lose out on money. It's okay. I have to live to make money, or any money I make is useless if I die. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
So taking that break, giving yourself that time to recover. Everyone needs different amount of time to recover. So at least taking like 2 weeks off, off of everything, just relaxing, letting your mind decompress. That is one thing. And if that is not possible, then at least putting those boundaries in. Like, for example, one of the biggest things that helped me recover from my burnout was meditation. So I started meditating. I was always made sure I meditated 20 to 30 minutes a day, like 5 to 7 days a week. That would be like my routine or my part of the routine. Setting up routines helps. Like, I had a set process in the morning, like, don't see the phone, do this, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it just puts your mind into a good state of mind. You have to train yourself for some time, but it helps. Then, like, not getting your phone to the dinner table, not getting your phone on the bed, those boundaries. Like, even if you get an email at 9 o'clock in the evening, not responding to it, how much ever urgent it is. If your boss calls, maybe pick it up or may not be, but setting those boundaries is important because your mind needs that rest. So those are the things which help me. And typically, like now, because I've been through it a couple of times, I can identify the signs for myself. So right now, what I do is I just take a couple of days of solo time. Like, my last one was right before I left my last job, because I was kind of burning out again. So I realized I needed to take time, and then the retreat, or like solo retreat, helped me figure out I needed to leave, and I did. The one after that was like literally last weekend, where I went out for 2 days, and again, same thing was happening to me. I was doing way too much stuff with crypto and consulting. I like, my task list had like 20 items on it, which I was working on daily. So I just prioritized it, like removed some of the things which I didn't need to do. And then that just gave space to my mind and I could breathe.
Yeah.
That boundaries and taking that time off, that helps a lot.
The two questions I have is I'd love to learn more about your meditation rituals is the first thing. And then also, I can't remember the term you used, Ashwin, but your was it your solo time or time by yourself?
Solo retreat I use.
Yes, brilliant. Love that. Yep. Solo retreat. I haven't heard that phrase before. I'm a big fan of that already. So yeah, I guess going back to your meditation rituals, Ashwin, meditation for me seems to come in and out of fashion a little bit for me personally. I watched a gentleman on YouTube called Andrew Huberman. He's brilliant. He's a neurologist and an ophthalmologist. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but he points to yoga nidra. Have you heard of that?
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. So I'm only going off what he sort of said. So I'm very, very new to that sort of space. But sort of 10 minutes before sleep, I would put on some yoga nidra on YouTube. For those following at home, it's very similar to guided meditation, I guess, but going through becoming conscious of different parts of the body and making sure that your different parts of the body are fully relaxed and working through the body. And that's brilliant. Whenever I've done that consistently, my sleep is sensational. So I used to try and do that 10 minutes before bed. And then I'd look to bring in another 10-minute session during the day. Again, just guided meditation seemed to work better for myself. Whenever I tried meditation, I just couldn't control my inner chatter. So guided meditation definitely worked better. So what's your sort of, I guess, routine and relationship with meditation, and maybe speak to some of the benefits that you found for yourself personally?
I think my routine is very similar to yours. So I think, again, as I said, my meditation started right after I burnt out. So, and I had a very good CPO at my company who understood the importance of like mental health and stuff. So I spoke to her. She suggested me to use Headspace. And I was very lucky that I found the exact fit for myself in my first go. So I started using Headspace then. Like, Headspace has this thing called as Wake Up, where they have like 5 minute or 5 deep breaths right after you wake up. And they have a short video of like 3 to 5 minutes which is either a meditation or it's a grounding experience. Basically, you ground yourself in reality, in the present moment. So I do that almost every day after I wake up. And then I do either 10 or 20 minutes of guided meditation every day. Like whenever, like either after brushing, like first 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours of the day is what I try to do it in. Sometimes it happens midday. It doesn't matter. But whenever I feel like my mind is too much running away in all the directions, I do it so that it just calms down and comes back to the present. And sleeping, I think exact same thing. There is a wake, like Headspace themselves, they have a wind down every night. I do a 10-minute wind down right before I go to sleep, which is exactly same. Like you start from the toes, come up to the head, and you make sure every part of your body is relaxed, and it basically goes to sleep. So that's kind of my meditation routines. The biggest benefits I've seen is I am more aware of things. It's like, so this is something, one of the amongst the questions you had sent. It's like you had asked me that what is the one thing the world needs more of, and this was my answer for that, which is self-awareness. Because most people know a ton of stuff around them, but they don't know themselves. And that is, I think, what we need in the world a lot more. That will make the world better, businesses better, all of that. And what I see is when I'm continuously meditating, like currently I'm at like 24 days straight without missing.
Awesome.
So I like to mention that's kind of I'm a data guy. So this kind of helps me keep track. Like, yeah, I'm doing something. That's not.
Yeah.
So, it's like it basically, I'm more aware. Like suddenly when I'm not meditating regularly, let's say I'm standing here, my mind goes like 5 kilometers in that direction before I even realize it has gone somewhere. But when I'm regularly meditating, probably within a kilometer, I'll realize, okay, my mind has run away. Let's bring it back. Or if I want to let it go, I can let it go. But that realization that I've moved on or moved away from what I'm doing, and like mind has gone on autopilot, that realization comes much faster when I'm regularly meditating. And I think that is the key fundamental thing that happens, which has a lot of benefits in different aspects of life. But that is like the fundamental building block, I would say.
That's brilliant.
That meditation helps me with.
And I'm really keen to learn a bit more about your solo retreats, Ashwin.
Yes. So it's a very, I don't have a process as such for it. What I do is I just go out wherever. I prefer places with nature and not too many people. So the way I behave, I talk to a lot of people. I like to talk to people. So I might seem like an extrovert, but typically that drains me off energy. So by definitions of introversion and extroversion, I'm an introvert a lot. So what happens is, I think that was one of the two truths.
It was, mate. It just hit my, and that's okay.
Anyway, so I like to go to places where I can get that solo piece. I don't want too many people. So I don't go to like party places and stuff. I typically go to a place where I can be left alone. Typically either the mountains or I prefer the mountains. Depending on the weather, I sometimes go to the beach. And I just go there. First day or so, I just try to do nothing. Like that, basically my retreat is all about not doing anything. So first day, biggest thing there in my retreat is not using tech too much. So if my average, let's say Apple product usage on a daily basis is like 12 hours or 14 hours, during the retreat, it would probably be 3 or 4 hours because I do get bored. So I do see random videos and stuff, but I try to limit that a lot, give my mind the space to breathe. First day or 2 days, how much ever time I need, I let it just flow. I let it unwind completely. And typically, like there is a place where I feel like, okay, I'm ready to work on something now. And that is when my pen and paper comes out, like my diary and my pen. Yeah. And I just start writing things down. I write things down and eventually like write something, take a break for a few hours, another writing session, and take another break of a few hours. Then when I start writing, I start thinking about stuff. And eventually in a couple of days or one day, whatever time I have available, I figure out the core reason why I needed the retreat and what is the solution to that. Like, for example, the most recent retreat, I just felt like I needed to go. I didn't know why. like my mind and my body knew I needed it, but it wasn't conscious. So I just went there. By the end of day one, I realized, okay, I had too much on my plate and I couldn't think straight and I needed it. By end of day two, I had figured out what was my priority and all the 20 things I was doing. So that's kind of typically how I go about it. And again, it's like depending on the place, if there is like tourist attractions and stuff, I might go and do that if I want to distract myself and stuff.
So it's just about I guess predominantly just giving your mind a rest, giving your mind a break.
Yep.
Giving it a chance to refresh itself.
Yep.
That's brilliant.
And the reason I do it solo is because it's like it might be your loved one, it might be your parents, brother, sister, or spouse, or a partner. Even though they love you, sometimes they are on their own autopilot and they might interrupt your like relaxation. So that's why I prefer to do it solo, because no one would interrupt me unless I ask them to. If you're living in a hotel, it's like there is one room cleaning time, that. And after that, no one is going to come to your room. So you can just sit there and lie on the bed for 8 hours and no one is going to disturb you. So that's why I prefer that solo nature, wherein that unwinding process happens completely and it's not interrupted.
Do you read?
Yes.
Yep. In your solo retreats.
So yes, typically I have either a few articles figured out which I want to read during that time, or a book.
Yeah.
So the most recent one, I'm actually reading the book still. I started it on the retreat. It's called Emotional Agility, written by an author named Susan David. It's about like being emotionally agile in life. So that was the book I was reading this time. But depending on the context, I do read. It might be a book or a bunch of blogs.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. I'll have to definitely look into that. I know usually probably once a year, maybe I'll typically go away with my wife, and usually she sort of requests that it's close to nature, which I always enjoy a lot more than I think that I will. I'm always too busy and whatever else, and we get there and I'm like, this is brilliant. We should have done this ages ago.
Yep. Again, I typically do like the solo retreat like once a six, so 2 to 3 quarters is the time frame I do it, and with my wife once a year. Same thing.
Yeah, okay, I love that. So where were we on your journey, Ashwin?
I had just realized I didn't want to teach kids.
Perfect. Yep. Excellent.
I didn't have the patience to do it.
That's one of my areas of opportunity as well.
So I did that. After that, I thought I might want to do an MBA. So I prepared for GMAT for a couple of months and I gave the exam. And then it was like, after almost applying for places, so it was an unfortunate incident that brought awareness to me that on the day of the exam, it got cancelled. Like there was some problem at the GMAT center and the exam got cancelled. And I had to push it forward, and it gave me another month. Like I didn't have a date available for 1 month, so it gave me another month.
Yeah.
And then I just started asking myself, why am I doing it? Why am I putting myself through it? And it didn't make sense anymore after that, because I was trying to do it to get into like build a network, because I had the skills needed to build a business. I probably know at least as much as MBAs, if not more. So it was more about the skill, the network. And then I came to the realization it's not worth paying so much money and taking out another loan, because it will put way too many shackles on me again. Been through that once. The first one was necessary. The second one is not. So I decided not to go for an MBA, but I had paid the money for the exam. So I just went out and gave the GMAT, scored decently well. I could have gotten into a few colleges, but then didn't go into college basically. And that was the MBA part. Then I moved into consulting. So started consulting with a few startups here and there. It was more or less part-time, full-time, like small gigs where I was exploring what I wanted to do next, similar to like current phase in life. And that was when I went into a healthcare tech company, which was doing B2B business. They had like a tech platform app stuff for companies, and I was like doing marketing with them. So it was a standard role. It wasn't too big of a company. It was like 30 people team, 30, 40 people team. But I realized there, the biggest thing which I realized was I can work in a company which is like 50 people. I can manage that expectation. So same thing which happened in the beginning of my career where I couldn't do it at all. I just was repulsed by the idea. Here I saw that I had the capability to do it. It wasn't now a capability issue. It was more of a willingness issue that I didn't want to do it, but if I needed to, I could. So that was my second last job, I would say, officially. After that, me and my wife, we decided to get married. So
congratulations, Ashwin.
Thank you. So then, like, the biggest challenge there was she's an assistant professor in one of the biggest institutes in our country, and that institute is in a remote place. And like, I was making good enough money in a bigger city, in like a tier 1 city. If I moved to that place, I couldn't find something that pays even half of what I was making.
Yeah.
So it was, the logical choice then was to find a remote role. This is like June, July of 2019. And like, then I joined, like, then I started looking out for places, started looking out for companies to apply to. And then that is when I found the company like Remo. And the interview process there was very funny. So typically, like back then, remote companies used to make you do an assignment as part of, like, even before you had an interview, you would do an assignment. So for me, they had given me like a marketing assignment of designing a web page and stuff. So I did the wireframe, sent it out. They had asked me to do a video. I sent that out as well. And like in 6 to 8 hours after I sent out, I got a rejection. I was like, fine, no worries. And then I was curious as to what happened. I asked them and they told me, okay, it didn't fit our criteria, standard HR answer. And what I noticed after that was my video that I'd sent to them, it had 0 views. So I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I was pissed. So I found the co-founder, the founder of the company. It was a solo founder company. I found him on all social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And I sent him a message saying, dude, see, you reject me, I don't mind. I've faced a ton of rejection in life, but give me a fair chance. I don't think this is fair. If you ask me to do an assignment, if I'm spending like 10 or 15 hours on an assignment for you, the least you can do is check it. Like, just see it once and then reject me. I don't mind that. Yeah. But don't do it this way. I'm very unhappy. And he kind of saw that on Twitter. He replied, he set up a call with me. And then I did a trial for a month with them. And then I joined them full time.
That's brilliant. And then you helped them scale.
Yeah, I helped them scale like 2020 when I helped them. So like 2020 part we covered. 2021, I was like, after sales, I moved into strategy, worked on the 2021 strategy with the leadership team. So it's like the typical strategy stuff, like competitor analysis, very in-depth, SWOT analysis, then TAM, SOM analysis for them, like with the team. We built that out. We built the 2021 strategy for the company. Then I wanted to take on a big challenge. The biggest challenge in the company was churn. So I went out to solve that with the team, took that up, like scaled it, like built processes around it and brought it down from 8 to I think 5.5 or 4.5, something like that. Customer churn, I mean. Yeah. Then it was my last stint after that. So where we were launching a partnership program. It's very similar to the HubSpot model. We were kind of helped by HubSpot. So we built it out, brought it out to the market, and then scaled it up to about 30, 35 people. So sorry, not people, agency partners. And that was kind of when I exited the company. And since then, I've been full-time into understanding and learning about Web3 and blockchain.
Web3 and blockchain. I'm just trying to think before we dive into that beautiful world. I did have a question, Ashwin, but it escaped me for now. I'm sure it'll come to me later. Yep. So how did you happen upon the world of crypto and Web3?
So it started back in 2017, the top of the 2017 cycle.
Yep.
That's where, again, media was the place where I found about it, and I put some money in, and it started going down, and I'm like, money lost. I didn't remove it. I didn't sell. Luckily, I just left. 2017, I just left, and then last year, 2020. Sorry. Oh, one thing I missed in my last story, wherein I took a break from the company. I took a couple of months break when I was burnt out. I had taken a couple of months break right after the churn project. So just remembered.
Anyway, perfect.
So when I was on that break last year from the company, that is when I again got to know about this from friends. Like they were investing. So I thought, okay, fine, let's invest something. And I think I invested right in March, right before the next drop. And this time I didn't just leave. I was like, okay, let's see what is happening. Why did this go down? And then I mentioned this earlier. I'm a very first principles thinker. So I'm like, okay, if I have to understand why this went down, I have to go into the depth of blockchain, understand the tech, so that I can make sense of it. So I started diving deep into the tech, how blockchain works, read the Bitcoin white paper, Ethereum white paper, a bunch of white papers, and started exploring that. I was doing this part-time along with my job. And then once I left the job, I kind of had realized that, okay, this is the core technology of blockchain is something which is going to stay, because we have, after Satoshi's white paper, we have found a way to utilize it in real world, even though it existed way before. So I really I believed in that, and then I went deep into it. Then over the last 8-10 months, I helped a few businesses build up, and my major focus during that time has been understanding things better. So I analyze projects myself. I have a framework built around it. So it's more or less like a seed investment framework where I analyze problem, solution, team, investors, product, MVP, product market fit, things like that. And then decide if I want to invest in it or not. But that is something which has helped me understand the businesses here, how people build, what people build. And then recently, over doing this study for 8-10 months, I realized, okay, I had thought of building a new skill set and probably becoming a trader in blockchain. But over time, I realized, okay, I don't need to do that. My existing skill set of building businesses is probably the most beneficial thing for me in this space. And that's when I started consulting on projects and helping people build things out. And my vision for the space, I think we started off with that itself. So that's where I'm going for now.
So before we unpack that, I just remembered my what I wanted to ask, I guess. Mark, what does marketing mean for you, I guess, in today's world?
See, marketing is simply getting your message out there. That is what I would put marketing as. Because, so again, actually, it's not just that. It's actually finding your message and then getting it out there. Because most projects like Web3, you see, most people don't have a genuine message. So finding, if you know Simon Sinek, he has, so you know the concept of why. So you have to, first thing in marketing is finding your why. Why are you actually doing it? What does it do for the customers? That's more like a business level thing. But I think it comes as a part of marketing, that finding that why message and then getting it out there to the relevant people. It's that simple, that you have to have your why and get it out to the people who would potentially be your users, your customers, your buyers, whatever, relevant stakeholder in your business.
Do you think there's is there any difference in marketing strategies, I guess, with Web 2 versus Web 3?
That's a very interesting take. And I think we don't know just yet, because Web 3 is still developing. We can judge at today's instant, but probably things will be much different in 6 months' time, because the Web 3 space moves too much on the Bitcoin price. So it's completely driven by speculation and prices for now. So in today's world, marketing for Web3 projects is just hype and how much money you can make, because 90 to 95% people are in the space for that. So it's like, it makes sense. Whatever the market is doing, businesses are going to go there that way. It's like demand and supply. So that's marketing for today. But if you ask me the future of Web3 and how marketing would look like, in my opinion, it would probably be more focused on word of mouth, because the whole ethos of Web3 is self-governing, self-custody, decentralization, community. These are kind of the pillars we see today. We might not have them tomorrow, but based on the current data, I think that word of mouth is going to be the most key marketing technique. And the way to do that is delivering amazing customer service. So like in my head, for the future for Web3, great marketing is going to be amazing customer service. Because if you do that, it works in Web2 as well, no doubt. But in Web3, it would be much more prominent, and it would be the biggest growth lever for projects and for companies.
I'm really interested to see the future of both, like Web2 and Web3, and I guess how they'll coexist, and whether people will leverage Web2 to bring attention to Web3, or whether they'll be sort of separate entities. To your earlier point, though, Ashwin, I think a lot of the technology with the blockchain, obviously, I think most people will be using technology on the blockchain, just having no idea that it's actually happening.
Yeah. And I also think this. So to your point of like, how will Web2 and Web3 exist? I think one of the biggest challenges with current Web3 projects is everyone is trying to leverage that hype and build something on the blockchain or in Web3 or use smart contracts. The way I think the world will eventually come to a equilibrium is, some things which are not possible with Web2 are going to go into Web3, but the things which are possible in Web2 are going to be staying in that space. Like, for example, like deeds, or having loyalty rewards, loyalty programs, doing that and converting your, or like simplest thing. Web 5, what this guy said, Jack said a couple of days ago. It's like with Facebook, when you have all of your data, all of your friends, likes, dislikes on Facebook, you don't own it, Facebook owns it. You can't take it and take from Facebook, put it on a new platform and build your profile. So a company owns your history. Like, I can't, like, if there are two competing food delivery apps, I can't take data from one and put it on other. I don't own that data, the company does. So if you want to leverage that, if you want to enable that, then a Web3 model makes sense. But like, just because, like, for example, one of the stupidest thing I've seen, again, I'm just saying it as I see. So sorry if the founder is one of the listeners of your podcast. I'm really sorry, but I still think it is stupid, which is, someone built an NFT project, a guy and a team, a bunch of guys actually built an NFT project, which was trying to bring awareness about tampons. So I have no idea. First of all, how can a bunch of 20-something guys bring awareness about tampons when they themselves don't know the problem? First. Secondly, why do you need NFTs for that? Why can't that be done with like blockchain? With the Web2 technology, by using social media? A ton of people are already doing that. So things like that are not going to work, in my opinion. So that is more suited for Web2, and things like what we spoke about, like Web 5 concept of Jack Dorsey, that is something which will make more sense on Web3. That's the way I see it, at least.
No, 100%. That just sounds like a bit of a cash grab, that one.
Exactly.
Such a big, let's talk about your journey in Web3. So 2017, 2020, you come back, pay 21. A bit more attention. 21, I apologize. And then you've thought to yourself, I'm going to learn about the space, get the understandings, and then what happens from there?
So I think this is where my typical life approach comes in, which is, I always give something before I ask. That is just the way I am built as a human being as well, and not in business world necessarily. Everywhere I do that. So my journey started with a YouTube channel called Crypto Banter,
Mhm.
So it's a pretty big YouTube channel, but they share a lot of stuff now. So started with them. I'm good at identifying problems and gaps in the market. So with them, what I identified was they had like a 1 hour long show, which I used to watch regularly. And there were a lot of people in the community who couldn't see those shows and they needed a brief version of it. So I started creating summaries for it. I used to watch it. So I started typing some like summaries and put it on the Telegram group. That was like me trying to help the community out. They're like the manager, like CEO kind of a person in the company saw that. They added me to their internal community of managers, like group managers and stuff. And then like I started doing that regularly for them. Then I think someone else started doing it. The main guy, the person who owns the company and channel, he kind of noticed that person because he was putting it on Twitter. I was putting on Telegram and Discord. So that guy got all of the credit. And then I was like, okay, this is not anyways giving me anything. Why do I spend like 2 hours when someone else gets all the credit? So I stopped doing that. But at the same time, they had asked me to like help them build a community in India, like a Telegram community focused on India and like this Indian subcontinent. So we started that community, scaled it up from zero to like 3,000 people during a period of few months. And then from there, they've asked me to be a mod at a couple of like projects that they had invested in. I did the mod work for a month and realized it's again, same thing, way too much time, like 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, not worth it.
Yeah.
You pay me $1 million to do that, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So realized that and then just moved on from there. Same time, there were like a couple of traders from the banter group who were starting another YouTube channel of theirs. And I was in touch with them beforehand. I was helping them out do certain things. So I kind of helped them out in building their YouTube channel. So just doing business skills I already had. So help them figure out what business makes sense for them. We didn't say eye to eye. So they built it a different way, but was helping them out do that, helping them with fundamental analysis of projects. As I said, I was anyways analyzing, and these two guys were traders. So kind of helped them with that a little bit for a while. We kind of scaled the YouTube channel together from 0 to 12K subscribers. And then eventually we didn't see eye to eye after a certain point. And then I was like, okay, guys, I've put in a ton of time. I'm not getting anything in return. And it is a time where I think I should get something, and they didn't agree. So we kind of basically parted ways on good terms. That was still like 2-3 months ago. Then I started consulting. So I've been a very big not follower, I would say, whatever. I've been a fan of Gary Vee for probably 10, 11 years. Seen his content for a long time, and it always spoke to me. So last year when VFriends launched, I was a part of the community, but I didn't buy in then. I thought it might not make sense. I wanted to see where it goes, but it went very high. So I kind of was part of the community since then. So started helping out people in the community. There is this guy called Jeremy, who is kind of the go-to person for the community. And he was launching his own platform or NFT project. So started supporting him with my time in terms of skills from the business side. Still doing that with him, helping him build that NFT project. Another guy from the community named Sal, I'm helping him out building his radio network. He's building a crypto-focused radio network in the US. He's a veteran guy. He has the business skills as well needed. Just that from my experience, what are the things that can go wrong a little bit here and there. I can like spend a couple of hours every week with him to help him out, how he can do things better. So that's kind of consulting. These two are pro bono for me for now, because these are kind of friends. And as I said, I always try to give more than I get. So that's what I started doing. And then since like a few weeks, I've been creating a ton of content on LinkedIn. I've been like, so that started with actually content creation started on Twitter, where I just wanted, like, I had too much thoughts in my mind and I just wanted to get them out there. So I started with Twitter, but I just realized there is just way too much stuff on Twitter. And it's like 90% of the stuff is more on focused on shilling. Like buy my project. So that didn't make sense to me. So I kind of moved from there to LinkedIn, which has been the native platform for me anyways. since my startup days. So moved into LinkedIn, realized, okay, this is a quality place. Only people who are genuinely building something or genuinely creating good content are here. And been doing that for last 2-3 weeks. Like try to put in a post day, doesn't happen always. And like connecting with people, commenting on other people's stuff. Like that is the whole point of this, is like making sure I build a community to interact with, who think about the future the same way, so that when I'm building something either of myself or with someone else, I have people to like bounce off ideas with. If I need to leverage a community to hire someone, like I have that whole community available to me when I start building something.
That's brilliant.
That's the whole point of doing stuff on LinkedIn for now.
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, the whole idea of LinkedIn is networking, right?
Yep.
So
Exactly.
it sounds like you're positioning yourself extremely well. Where do you? I guess that sort of brings us to today, Ashwin.
Yep.
And as exciting and impressive as your journey has been up to this point, the future is. Yeah, that's it's going to be very, very lucrative and exciting and joyous from the sounds of it. Have you got any idea, Ashwin, of what the future may hold for yourself?
So honestly, I don't. I know what I want it to hold for me. And looking at my last 10, 12 years, I know that if I set my mind to something, I can make that happen. So I'm pretty sure this is what is going to happen over the next 7 years, which is like over the next few years, a fundamental base of technology products and services are going to be built in Web3, which will support the next, like the third version of the internet. And those will be like the PayPal, the Google, the Amazon of Web3. And what I want to do in that space is I want to be a core contributor. Like in 7 years time, or 5 to 7 years, that's the time frame I take. When I look back, I want to be able to tell myself, it doesn't matter to me if no one else agrees with it. If I think that without me, the world couldn't get here, I would be very happy.
That's one of the greatest goals I think I've ever heard.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what's let's dive a little bit into I guess the Web3 technology, and I guess specifically NFTs for me are very exciting. I think I'm very intrigued to see, to your point, where we may end up in 7 years. I don't think we have any idea. The utility in the smart contract is going to be huge. Similar to yourself, I'm a big fan of Gary Vee. We obviously met in the VeeFriends community.
Yep.
I don't have a VeeFriends either, Ashwin, and it's one of my very few regrets in life. You know, I remember saying to a couple of my mates, should we get a VeeFriends? Like, and with this similar style, we'll sit back and watch it and make a judgment call. And it just exploded out of nowhere. There was no time to make a judgment call. But that's exciting to watch that VeeFriends project continue to grow and add value over time. But I guess what do you find the most exciting about, I guess, smart contracts and especially the utility element of it?
Honestly, I think, in today's world, this is something which I build. Like the way I think about the world is, for the world, the currency is money, like fiat currency, or like the people look at everything in terms of money, and transactions happen in terms of money. But on a deeper level, on a human level, the currency of human beings is trust. That is my thought process about life, and that is how I build. Like I don't care if I lose some money, but if I can build trust with a person for long term, worth it. Always worth it in my head. So what I see is human beings are focused on trust, and that is their currency. Because if you lose money, you can make money back. If you lose trust, it's very, very difficult to make it back up. And with the smart contract, with the blockchain, there is no doubt. It will remove any degree of doubt as to what has happened. It can bring that trust back into the society. as a whole. Like, for example, if I tell you like the whole story I told you today, all of that could be made up. How do you know I'm not lying? How do the listeners know I'm not lying? There is no tangible way unless you go to that effort and talk to every person I've mentioned and ask them the questions, and they have to remember it exactly the way I remember it. And if that matches up, then only you can know that I'm not lying. But with the blockchain, you can see stuff on the chain itself. With smart contracts, it's like, let's say we set up today's call. You said you'll get me here. I said I'll come. With a in this conversation, we both had to trust each other to show up on time. With a smart contract, this transaction can't happen on a smart contract, but transactions like this can happen on the contract where no one gets screwed up. Simplest example is something which I put up last week, which was freelancers and consultants. One of the challenges as consultant or a freelancer is people take work and vanish. It happens on both sides. Clients do it, freelancers do it. So if it is built on a chain, if it is built on smart contract, first is you have reputation. It's legit reputation built for freelancers. Secondly, if the contract is on chain, dude, you can't hire me unless you have the money put in that contract. Once both of us sign contract, I deliver the work, and then the money comes directly to my bank account. So it doesn't like there is no chance of cheating in that whole transaction. It makes it more user friendly in a way. So that's the way I see, like, one of the core things of human nature is brought back because of smart contracts and blockchain. And in terms of utility, I think it's just utility for NFTs. The sky is the limit, dude. Like the simplest one, the biggest opportunity I see is like Microsoft using NFTs as a key to their software. Microsoft in itself is a big company, make billions of dollars, and probably lose billions of dollars to piracy. Like I know during my engineering days, like out of 200 students, probably 70 to 80% were using pirated copies of Windows because they couldn't afford to buy it. It's just that. But with NFTs, you don't have to build the OS on chain. But if you have the validation part only on chain, like without someone having that valid key, which is an NFT in their system, on their system, they wouldn't be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to access Windows. And that can potentially like stop piracy to a big extent. There are like, in terms of utilities, the sky is the limit. It's just for people like us to figure out new business models, new like innovations in the space to use NFTs and smart contracts.
It's very exciting, and for me personally, the smart contract side of things, I've definitely got my eyes open to that. And I'm excited to see the creativity in the different projects that most will obviously go to zero, especially in this first sort of couple of years, 2-3 years, where everyone's trying to figure it out. But the community in the Web3 space, there's a lot of it just feels like there's a lot of love in the Web3 space. And then you mentioned Twitter. Twitter is look, it's an interesting platform. There's a lot of you've got to have some thick skin, I think, to be a regular on Twitter. Is probably the best way I can put that one.
That's what I was actually going to say this, that I don't know which Web3 world you live in, but the world which I live in, there is not too much love. I agree with you. You need to really have a lot of thick skin because, again, it's human nature, right? That people are not in it for everyone will say they are in it for the community, but 90-95% people are in it for the money. And when you put in money, you can't afford to lose. You put in your like children's tuition fees or your mortgage payment, and you're thinking of paying off the mortgage in 3 months, and then every money you had like goes to zero. Obviously, people are going to get angry. That's just human nature. So it's just, again, as I said earlier as well, it's like the market is working that way. That's why that kind of people are coming in. Eventually, like, I'm very excited for next couple of years, or like probably 3 to 4 quarters, I would say, simply because there is no money to be made. So the people who still live in the space, breathe this space, build in this space, are these people who actually know about it, who care about it, and those are the people who will stay long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Well, you mentioned a couple of resources already, Ashwin. Who do you, who do you follow in the space to keep up to date with the ever-changing world of crypto?
So I honestly don't follow people. I follow Cointelegraph, Decrypt, because those are the two places where I always get good information and whatever is like happening. Like most recent stuff, I always find it on Cointelegraph. It might not be completely right or relevant, but it's like I read the headline, I know what is happening. If I want to dive deep, I can go and dive deeper into it. But there hasn't been, like in the last, I would say 4 to 6 months, there hasn't been anything that I missed, which was not there on Cointelegraph. Anything happened in the crypto space and was not there on that. So I have like notifications on Telegram for those two, and I just follow them. And in terms of people, then again, like projects, I follow Gary. So, but again, it's like my Discord and my Twitter is muted. So I always make sure that I have these two platforms muted because there are too many notifications.
Yeah.
So I just go there, I check out the notifications I have, read through the tweets to see what has happened. But it's like project specific, like 3-4 projects I follow. And for what is happening in the space, I just go to my Telegram for Cointelegraph and Decrypt.
How often do Cointelegraph and Decrypt post articles?
I think for Cointelegraph, it is way too much. In a day, they have like 50 to 55 articles coming in. So that's way too much. Again, depends on the market scenario, but like last 2-3 days, I think I'd seen like 100 articles coming from them. Because again, a lot of things are happening in the market right now, probably because of that. So I would put it like at an average of 30-35 from Cointelegraph. Decrypt is much lesser in volumes, wherein they are like maybe 5 to 7 articles a day, max 10, I would say.
Yeah.
But again, both are relevant for me in my head, at least, because I can go in depth, or if I just don't have too much time, want to get the highlights, then I go to Decrypt. Want to go in depth, have time, go to Cointelegraph.
Yeah, perfect. Ashwin, have you had any mentors or coaches throughout your career?
I did. So it's like, honestly, a lot of things I can see people as mentors or coaches in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the NLP guy, he did want to be my coach. I didn't agree with him at all. And probably he was a coach during that period of time for me, because it did impact me a lot in my life after. But during that time, I didn't know that. So that is one of the people I would say. Then the CEO of my last company, Hoyen, he was a mentor for me for a while. He was helping me learn more stuff and like build the business. So he had scaled a business before, so he knew the stuff. And till whenever, like, I used to have a weekly meeting with him, I used to ask him certain questions, he used to give me the answers, and then help me out. A couple other people. There is a person who's a VC, and she was a consultant for our company, last company. Her name is Jen. She has been my mentor for like last year and a half, and she's been like big. So she helps me with business as well as like big life things. So big picture thought process, she helps me out with. And there's a friend of mine who's less of a mentor coach, but she's a very good friend of mine, and she knows her shit from business perspective. So we always talk about that, and she's more of a sounding board for me. Whenever I'm stuck in a place, I give her a call, we discuss about stuff, and I'm much clearer about how to proceed about a certain thing after that.
That's exciting. That was leading into my next question, Ashwin, if you had any sort of business support people around you. But you pretty much covered that.
I think I use like a few more people. So my typical way of making important decisions in terms of business as well, it's like if it is a direction decision and things like that, because when you're making that kind of a decision, you have to consider multiple perspectives. And in the past, I've realized that that is one of my blind spots, wherein I think about, probably out of 10, I think about 5 or 6 different things, and miss out on 3 or 4. So what I do now is I spend my own time, and then I have people from different fields and verticals to talk to, so that they can give me their opinions and I can probably like cover those blind spots. So I have a few friends from my engineering who are like McKinsey, Bain kind of people, consulting people who are working there. So I talk to them. I have a sister-in-law of mine who's building her own business, or their family business. I talk to my wife because she knows me like better than anyone else except probably me. So she gives me like how I would react. Sometimes I don't see how I would behave in a certain situation 3 years down the line, but she can. So that personal level of insight comes from my wife and from my brother sometimes. So those are kind of the support group I have on top of the mentors and coaches I mentioned earlier.
I really love that. The idea you brought up of blind spots. I think it's very easy because we all like to be liked, and so it's very natural to hang out with people with the same ideas, the same beliefs, the same hobbies, because we'll naturally gravitate towards them. But the downside to that, if there were to be one, is if people see the world the same as you, then you won't see the world like everyone else, if that sort of makes sense. So I really love that idea of blind spots. I haven't heard anyone put it so practically as that, Ashwin. So makes me think, who else can I sort of lean on myself that perhaps doesn't see the world my way?
Yep. I think that also comes with time, right? It's like, and it comes with one of the things which we spoke about earlier, which is self-awareness. It's like, because I have put in those 7, 8, 9 years into understanding myself and questioning myself on everything I do on a day-to-day basis, that has given me this awareness that, okay, this is a blind spot and I can't do this. I can't see it when I'm in this kind of state. I can't see this. And because of that, I need this kind of person. So it's like, when you put in that work into yourself, that kind of builds it for you. So that's what has happened for me.
I've got a handful of questions, and I want to dive into the 2 truths and a lie. In the spirit of transparency, Ashwin was kind enough to send me 2 truths and a lie before the show. I really should have led with this, Ashwin, because the conversation has obviously naturally dropped a few hints for me. So I maybe didn't do you the greatest service there. So I'll learn from that. But what's your favorite book, Ashwin?
See, there are a few books which kind of shaped me early years of my life. That's why I really like them. So 2 of them, one is Lean Startup, one is called 0 to 1. So these 2, Lean Startup is written by Eric Ries and 0 to 1 is written by Peter Thiel. So this is like early stage thought process of how to build a business, thought process, like processes and things like that. So these 2 like books kind of shaped me then. Currently, like another book which has had a big impact on me is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's like a negotiation focused book by one of the best hostage negotiators FBI has ever had. So that is a book which I still love and suggest every salesperson should read it. Probably every businessman should read it. And then like one of the books which I always go to when I'm in trouble or when I need to find an answer is called Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. So by your smile, I know I can see the book.
Yeah.
Like Tim has done bunch of like big people podcast, and he just narrowed, like it's basically a summary of like 200 podcasts in one single book, which probably has like 95% answers which you need in your life, in whole life, not just business, but in life in general. So those are like some of the ones which has impacted me at different points in my life, and like I hold dear to my heart.
I love that you did that, because it is about that big. It's it's massive.
Again, you don't need to read it, right? My way is like I have the hard copy and I have the soft copy. So I search in the soft copy and then I go to the hard copy and read it in that.
Yeah, perfect. You're right. It's a brilliant book. I haven't. I set out to read it from front to back, and I stopped sort of halfway, so I'm yet to revisit it. It's on my to-do list.
It's a great book. I really like it a lot.
How do you go with books, Ashwin? Because I always find myself with sort of 3 or 4 books open at once,
Mhm.
and I question whether there's more value in just starting a book and finishing a book and then moving on. But I get sort of excited with the new releases from everyone else. Oh, I need to get into that book, and there's quite a few unfinished books on my bookcase.
So honestly, in my opinion, having an unfinished book is a very good thing. This is like a very contrary to the how people think.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like, see, if a book cannot hold your interest for long enough, it probably is not for you. So I have a ton of like, so what I do is I start a book, I
Mm.
probably read it till I am interested in it. Sometimes I like probably like one of the like when books are very interesting to me, I finish it in like 2 3 days, 4 days. There
Yeah.
are sometimes like very heavy books, like the one which I'm reading right now. It's a emotionally heavy book, so I don't read it. I can't read it rather completely at a go. So I read like couple of pages or like couple of chapters in a day, and then keep going about it that way. And I go about it like I have one book at a time because that works better for me. I've tried multiple books,
Mm.
but I think like it just my brain works that better that way, that if I have one book, then I will try to give it the chance. If it can't hold my interest, even trying, even after forcing myself to read it, I'm like, this book is not for me. Like for example, like Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
It's an iconic book and people like praise it a lot, but I couldn't read it. I
Mm.
tried a couple of times, I couldn't. So I'm like, okay, this is not meant for me. So I just keep it aside. But like for example, the Never Split the Difference, or there was a book for uh, like I like to read biographies a lot about business founders. I like to understand their thought process and stuff. So Amazon biography, or like how Amazon was built, how Walmart was built, how Nike was built, books like these, I just read them through in a couple of days or a week.
Mm.
It's that. So understanding what makes sense for me, that's the way I go about books.
I like that. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist
Oh
by,
yes,
yeah,
I know.
it's a brilliant and such a so much value in such a short story.
Yep. And it's like what I've found is I've read it multiple stages of life. So first
Mm.
time I read it, I was in like seventh grade. Didn't understand anything in the book.
Yeah.
Then I read it in 12th and I understood some part. Then I read it like probably when I was like 20. Understood some more, like a different perspective. And I read it once more when I was 25. I got another perspective. I think I'm getting to a place where I should read it again to get some other insight out of that book.
I like that. I might do the same myself. I heard someone else speaking about that. They're literally the same thing. Reading books at different stages in life will share different different nuggets of gold. So yeah, I love that. One of the other questions I had here, Ashwin, was what's your favorite tool of any kind?
Oh, Excel. Excel or Google Sheets? That's like the easiest question for me. I like to have structure. So I
Yeah.
think if you have noticed that I like build stuff and like put it in a process structure for myself. So my life runs on Excel. I have like so one of the things which happened after my last role was I could be financially free. So that was one of the bigger things for my because for me financial freedom is not having to do a job necessarily to survive. So I reached that stage in life, and one of the biggest things that enabled me to do that was having an Excel tool which I built, which could project me and my family, basically me and my wife's life till we are 80. So building that out on an Excel and then seeing how that would work out. Obviously, life doesn't work according to Excels, but it gave me that freedom to be like taking a break or not having to do a job forever. So that kind of gives me a lot of flexibility. I live in Excel. So like the tool, if I have to pick one tool, if world ends and I can get only one tool, I'll pick Excel forever.
I love that. All right, let's dive into the two truths and a lie. And again, I need to apologize, Ashwin. I don't like throwing apologies around, but I feel I owe you an apology. I should have led with this, but that's okay. We're here now. So Ashwin
Yes.
was kind enough to send through 2 truths and a lie, which I'll go through now. Number 1, I am an extrovert. Number 2, I have 60% of my net worth in crypto. And number 3, I have achieved financial freedom. Now, the irony is, as I read these out, I'm not as convinced as I was before. I will take a stab in the dark at the lie, and I'll say that you are, in fact, not an extrovert.
Yep. So
Brilliant.
again, because I am a sales guy, I have that skill set. But as I said earlier, it's like by definition, extroverts are people who gather energy in groups of people and they draw energy from other people. And introverts are like who are drained in public setting. For me, the way it works is I can't take too many people for too long. I can probably do it for like a couple of hours. And then I need my solo time for at least a couple of hours so that I can recharge myself. So that's where I think I'm more of an introvert by definition of it than an extrovert.
What do you think?
This always works. This always, like if we hadn't had the whole chat, even if I give it out to people who know me, this lie always works.
Yeah. So I'm the exception. I've done you a disservice, Ashwin. I apologize.
No worries at all.
This is probably a good one to finish on, Ashwin. What brings you the most happiness in life?
That's a very deep question, I think. See, honestly, this is literally something which happened 2 days ago. So we were going on the road, like my family, we went for a road trip over the weekend. We were cruising at 120 kilometers an hour. And so it was this way, like one-way road. And suddenly a big car, we were in a sedan and it was an SUV, which was coming at 120 probably towards us. And we were almost like, my dad was driving. So he saw it and he changed the lane immediately. But in that moment, I thought that what if I had died? Because if we had crashed, we probably, all 5 of us, we would have died that day. And when I kept thinking about that throughout the day, this was in the morning, I kept thinking about that throughout the day. And the answer that came into my mind after that throughout the thought process was, I would have been very happy. So it's like I am in a very content place in my life. And I think, this comes back to your question. The reason I think it comes back there is, what brings me most happiness right now is like doing something which I truly believe in and love. It's like I'm already living with the love of my life. She understands me. We spend except 10 hours she's in office, spend the rest of the time together. So that brings one big part of life. Like, let's say 14 hours or 15 hours of my day, my happiness comes from there. Rest 8 hours, 10 hours comes from doing stuff which I genuinely like doing this, talking to people, helping people out, making a positive impact on their life. So that is what brings happiness in my life.
Ashwin, that response makes me happy, my friend. I've really enjoyed tonight, so I want to thank you very much for joining us here on the show. Ladies and gents, do yourselves a favor. Ashwin, where is the best place for people to connect with yourself?
I think I would say LinkedIn at the moment, because I don't like Twitter too much anymore. I do that, but it's like, if you send me a message on LinkedIn or a request on LinkedIn, you'll probably hear back from me in like half an hour or an hour. On Twitter, it will be like a couple of days sometimes. So LinkedIn is the best place to connect.
Yep. I'll put the LinkedIn contact address in the comments below. Ladies and gents, do yourselves a favor, reach out. He's a beautiful man and will be a big part, and already is in the Web3 world as it evolves over time. Ashwin, thank you again, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, my friend.
Ladies and gents, enjoy the rest of your night. We'll see you next time.